Hey, everybody, it's Aaron Calafato, and this is Story Catching Live. Welcome. A few things tonight. First, this is going to be a good one. I'm going to have three parts to the stream. The first one is we're going to at least try to answer the question, and the way that I always do it is obviously through story, trying to understand what about the movie Hook from 1991, what about that movie was so special then for those of us that watched it growing up. So I think that puts us, what is that, 30s, 40s, 50s decades? For those of us that watched it as kids or teenagers, what made it special then? And then flash forward now to 30s, 40s, 50s, millennials, Gen X. What makes it even more special now? And I'm going to get to that in a second. After we talk a little bit about Hook and that incredible masterpiece, then I'm going to get into a game that I kind of devised about, with story catching. I'm going to have my friend, director, and editor and producer and raconteur. He's an amazing storyteller. I've been trying to convince him to go on the radio and do live streams for a long time. Rob Montague. He's going to join me here in about 15 minutes or so after we riff about Hook. And then he's going to try to challenge me. He's brought three items. It could be pictures. I don't even know what they are. And that's the whole point of the game. He's going to show an item on the screen or a picture or something. And without it being planned, I'm going to have to just tell a story on the fly. I'm going to have to catch a story and then I'm going to have to tell a story without a net. And we'll see as I do these streams if people can stump me, if people can trip me up, or if I draw a blank. But I feel pretty good that I'll be able to spin a yarn. I'll be able to spin a web. I'll be able to tell a tale. And we'll see how it goes. I could fall on my face and you'll be here live to watch it. And then at the end of this whole thing, I'm going to let the stream run for about 45 minutes to an hour, but I will let you stream 7 Minute Stories Radio, which is a 24-hour radio stream of my storytelling podcast by that same name, 7 Minute Stories. I'm going to go ahead into the chat here. We're streaming on YouTube, and I'm going to go and put where you can find 7 Minute Stories, wherever you get your podcasts. And there you can get them in a couple different ways. I'll put a link to my Substack. That way, there's a non-algorithmic way that you can get them. You can receive them as an email and notifications that way, or you can go and follow them wherever you get your podcasts. So let's go back to 1991. Gosh, it just feels like yesterday. 1991, there was a little movie called Hook, a fantasy adventure novel. Well, novel. It felt like a story, a film directed by Steven Spielberg. And by the way, spoilers, right? So you'll and if you haven't seen it, see the movie. So let's just spoil away. But Hook imagines what happens if Peter Pan grows up. And now in the movie, Peter is named Peter Banning. He's a work obsessed lawyer. I think he does, M&As, mergers and acquisitions. And hey, Rob.
Oh, hey. Didn't mean to do that.
Hey, no, actually, why don't you just stay?
Okay.
I was just doing by the way, I already said that you were going to come on and we were going to do the whole storytelling without a net game. So why don't you hang here while I talk about Hook, and then we can just naturally flow into it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Everyone, by the way, I already introduced you in name. This is Rob Montague. This guy right here. Uh, Rob, can you tell folks who are going to, stream the replay afterwards or joining us live who you are? I know you jumped on here with me a couple times, and what you do, and maybe some stuff you got going on right now.
Yeah, I'm a director, editor, producer. I have a company called Late Morning Films. And right now we are prepping to make a movie, actually.
And I'm going to be part of a reading that I think is going to happen tomorrow night, a table read, and there's a lot of stuff happening there. Uh,
Correct.
you and I, we've been working together for a long time. We've been friends for a long
Mhm.
time. Also, uh, you and I have been working on a lot of 7 minute story derivative content that we've been posting on Instagram and Facebook, which has been going viral as well. So we've been working on that for some time.
Yes.
Um, okay, so here's what I was telling folks. I was doing a little recap of Hook, and I don't know if you remember this. 1991, it comes out. Adventure film, Steven Spielberg. It imagines what happens if Peter Pan grows up. By the way, the premise of that is incredible, just to start with. And Peter Pan is named Peter Banning. He's this kind of work obsessed lawyer. I think he works in merger and acquisitions. And he's essentially forgotten the fact that he was Peter Pan. And this all plays out in the movie. And basically, the story and the plot go crazy when Captain Hook, or at least one of his minions, probably Shmi, shows up and kidnaps Peter Banning's kids. Yes, Peter Pan's has kids. And they take the kids back to Neverland. And he ends up having to go on this adventure. He meets Tinkerbell. He does this whole thing. Now, the movie, we'll get into this a little bit in terms of the plot, what happens, and some of the magic of what it was like to watch it when you were a kid. And I say this, I was talking about decades earlier in the stream. Maybe when you're now makes those kids now what 30s 40s 50s, so like whether you were a teenager or a real little kid or just like 9 10 11 years old, when it came out it made an impact. It actually came out to mixed reviews, but it has really really rekindled this nostalgia kind of thing. And specifically I think it's because it hits people of our age demographic now in a way, in an even more complex way than maybe it hit when we were kids. And so that's what I'm going to try to solve with the story here. But the movie stars, get this lineup, by the way. Robin Williams plays Peter Banning, Peter Pan, sort of this, Jekyll and Hyde thing. Dustin Hoffman, which was wild because at the time, I didn't even know for years afterwards. I wasn't following acting, didn't really know who famous actors were, but I had seen Dustin Hoffman in a gazillion other films. I didn't know that was Dustin Hoffman. I literally thought that there was a totally different actor. And then you realize that's freaking Dustin Hoffman. He played one of the greatest Captain Hooks that have ever been played. And those, I mean, he's a short dude, but those boots, those heels that he wore, he was on fire. Julia Roberts played Tinkerbell. She was incredible, charismatic, beautiful. Maggie Smith, rest in peace, played Granny Wendy. Caroline Goodall played Moira. She has that scene in the hallway where Captain Hook comes in and they go, "What happened? What happened?" And she goes, the door closed on me and the children were screaming. The children were screaming. I mean, this layered with emotion. And then you had Charlie Corsmo, by the way, who played Jack. Amber Scott played Maggie. These are the two kids of Peter Banning, played by Robin Williams. But Charlie Corsmo, just up the way at a university, ends up, I believe, he's a professor of economics at a university right here in Northeast Ohio, which is kind of a
Case
life is weird,
Case
right? Case
Western.
Western, so
Case
wild,
Western.
so wild. Okay, so that's the premise and that's the stars. It got released in 1991, like I said, by TriStar Pictures, and it's part of this Peter Pan universe. Okay, so I remember watching this when I was had to be 8 years old. 91. Yeah, I was 8 years old. The effect and who it wasn't it Williams, John Williams that did the score. I could be wrong. I think it was, but whoever did the score, it was yeah, dude. The score of Hook. I'm sorry. Are we looking to transcend to another dimension? Because if you want to here's something. If you want to transcend to another dimension, all you got to do is put the soundtrack of Hook. Play that. Because as a kid, I remember watching it unfold, hearing the music, seeing the performances.
John Williams.
And John Williams,
Mhm.
John freaking Will. Of course, it's John Williams. And I can picture it now. My brother and I sitting on this kind of used couch that was our couch, thrifted somewhere, dirty carpet. Had a couple of cans of Pepsi that were open, kind of leaking on some of our sneakers, and we're sitting there. And I had a Hitachi television that was literally you just pushed and pulled the knob, and then you could press the numbers. And I'm watching Hook. We put the VHS in, It was like going to a different dimension. When I went and started watching this, my brother and I, the first thing I noticed was the music and then the acting. I, mean, I was completely captivated by the story. I get pulled into the story, and as a kid, the first thing that starts to occur to me is what an asshole I thought Peter Banning was. I'm thinking at 7 years old, 6 years old, whatever, 8 years old, you see this character play out, and he's work obsessed. I mean, the first thing that they do so well is he's running in the office. I'm like, who are these clowns he's hanging out with when he should be hanging out with his family? Why is he so focused on work? And then he goes to the play, and the play obviously is Peter Pan, and his daughter is in the play, and he's sitting in the theater, and and the phone keeps ringing. There's this theme that happens in the movie where the phone is ringing, and even then it was like early mobile phone. So he's taking this brick out, unfolding it, and he's trying to take the business call, and the guy calls him. I can't talk right now. I can't talk right now. And his wife in the movie is like, dude, you're missing it, Peter. And again, I'm thinking, what's wrong with Peter Banning? After the theater, after kind of sleeping through the play of his daughter, he promises his son, Jack, that he's going to go see his baseball game. Now, Jack sucks, man. He's already striking out, right? So it doesn't matter. He asked his dad to be there, and he goes, and I think I'm quoting this correctly. He goes, "I promise I'll be there. My word is my bond." And Jack goes, "Okay,
Yeah.
my word is my bond." And we cut right to the baseball game. Jack's up at the plate, swings and misses. He's a total disaster. He fails this team. He feels terrible. And as he's at the plate, taking this really important swing, I think the bases were loaded. Run him home, or, send him home, Jack. Everyone's cheering for him. Jack is looking to the stands, looking for his dad. Nowhere to be found. And it's insinuated that he missed that last hit. Probably, yeah, because he sucked at baseball, and he couldn't hit a curve. I think even his mom is saying in the stands, going, "Please not the curveball, please not the curveball." And he swings and he misses, but he looks back there and his dad's not there. And we end the scene with Peter Banning kind of walking up onto the field and thinking he's getting there. He's got his hat on and the field's empty, and all you see is floating trash and a couple of boxes of popcorn. And you have this wide shot of an empty baseball diamond. On the plane ride to London, because they're doing a fundraising dinner for Maggie. And now they're in London. And this is where, I'm sorry, where Maggie played Wendy, but the character of Wendy is old now. So it's not this girl in the story anymore. And he's flying on the plane, and Jack hates him, and he's trying to earn his love back, but the whole time he's obsessed with the freaking job and the calls are coming in. And he gets to a point where he's in this beautiful little townhouse in London the night before the fundraiser, and he's taking the call. And I gotta remember, I remember so much about this movie, but I can't remember. There's the guy's name. I don't know, it wasn't Rob, but it was someone's name. Do you remember it, Rob? I can't remember. It was like uh, Brad, freaking Brad, dude. It was Brad. And it's this guy, Brad, who's calling for the office all the time. And I got to take this. It's Brad. I got to take this. And it gets to a point where his wife, they have this incredible scene. And again, as I'm 8, I'm watching this. I'm going like, I'm on the kid's side. I'm on the wife's side. And Peter Banning is just an idiot to me. Priorities completely flipped upside down. There's an incredible scene where he goes, "I have to take this." And this actress, they have this amazing scene where she goes, "Listen, you're missing your kid's life. You're missing it. We only get a few years with our kids, a few short years, and it's over. Don't take the call." And he says, "You hated the deal." Yeah, I hated the deal. And he ends up taking this call, and she throws the phone out the window. It's this big thing. And prior to that fight, he has this breakdown where he's on the phone talking to Brad, and he's doing the thing, and the kids are coming and making all the noise, they're playing cops and robbers or whatever, and he explodes, and he goes, "Well, everybody just shut up." He's like, "Moyer, get him out of here. I'm on the phone call of my life." Right? He's so, and I'm 8 years old, I'm watching this, I'm going, what the hell is wrong with this guy? And then you start rooting for him because as he makes his way to Neverland and he meets the Lost Boys, he meets Rufio, all these moments of being on Captain Hook's ship, all these moments where he could be heroic, he falls short. All these moments where he goes to hang out with the Lost Boys and Tinkerbell's trying to get him back into shape. More importantly, they're like, bro, you got to remember where you came from, remember who you are. And it takes him a long time in the movie. I remember as a kid going, how long is it going to take this guy to go back to being Peter Pan? And it really isn't until about 60, 70% into the movie where he actually reconnects with that after the food fight, after all these instances where he has this rivalry with Rufio and all this stuff. But what they end up doing is reconnecting him with not only who he was, but his imagination, his hope, his joy, this infinite sort of energy that we have when we're young. And that was the energy I had watching it back in 1991. Okay. 2024, I watched this movie I hadn't watched in 10 years. And a lot of us of our generation are watching this movie. And now I'm watching it through totally different eyes. And I have to tell you, I was surprised how empathetic I was to Peter Banning. Because now, as a dad who has bills and kids to take care of and people to answer to and a career that equals money, which equals security for who? For them. When you're a kid, when you're 8 years old, you're not even thinking about this context. You're not even thinking about, yeah, dad's at work. What does work do? What's the functionality of it? And you're not supposed to. As an adult, I'm watching this and I'm going, why am I relating to Peter Banning? Not agreeing with. Why am I relating to this guy who I was like, what an idiot when I'm 8? Now this guy seems like, yeah, I can get that. I mean, Brad's calling. It is the office. Maybe he made a promise to Brad. What does the deal mean? What's his mortgage like? What is the bill to send his kids to those schools? How much did that flight cost to London? Did he get anything? He was an, you find out in the story lore of this movie that he was an orphan, right? So it's like, did he get any money from his family? Maybe he was on his own. He had to make every bone that he had. He had to transition from being freaking Peter Pan and assimilate into real life. What kind of assimilation is that? I mean, for the love of God, that's like Superman coming back from Krypton and figuring out how to make his way at the Daily Planet. I mean, that's a difficult transition. I start thinking this way. And I also start thinking when the guy goes to the freaking Neverland, I thought these Lost Boys, they're kind of rude, to be honest with you. No, please, no, thank you. They treat this guy like he's a piece of shit. They name call. And now what's funny is I hear Peter Banner saying, like, hey, watch your language. You shouldn't talk like that, young man. And I hear myself saying those same things to my kids. What the hell happened to me 2024? Am I Peter Banning? Why is it hitting so many of us of this generation so differently? Why is this movie becoming something that's making me slightly uncomfortable? Why am I watching this and having a totally different perspective? And why is it even better than ever? For me, there's something, and I don't know, and it maybe happened for people who watched it. It's because if you watched it then and watched it now, you're watching it as two parts of yourself. And you're watching the two parts of yourself, the young, the youth, the optimistic, one that's not tethered to fully to world experiences. And then you're watching it as an adult who has a lot of pressure, not only in our lives, just being human, getting up every day. We talk about this, Rob. It's hard just to live sometimes day to day. And then you live sometimes day to day, and then you have to enter into a world that looks like it's collapsing in different ways every single day. And add to that, when you're trying to focus it and keep your job, some kids are running around the room shouting, and you just want to tell everybody, "Would everybody just shut up?" I don't know why I was relating to Peter Banning, but then something happened in the movie where both myself at 8 and myself at 40 came together. And that's this realization that so many of us who are loving nostalgia core and looking back, we're not looking back because we're trying to forget what's happening now. We're looking back because I think we're reconnecting with a part of ourselves and something that isn't true, in my opinion, which is this. And this is where we'll kind of end with the Hook story. And this is where I think I've netted out. In that movie, they did such a great job of the juxtaposition of what it's like to be an adult and the pressures that you face there. But the overriding lesson is don't lose the part of you that doesn't age, which is your spirit and your energy and your hope and your youth, because youth isn't physical always. Youth is a state of mind, it's a state of energy. And the funny thing is, our bodies, we're ticking time bombs from the moment we're born, right? That goes away over time for all of us, some longer, some shorter, but it goes away. What I love about this is even when that's happening, can you still preserve the eternal part of who you are? The part of you that is energy. Can you keep that? Can you be hopeful and optimistic and imaginative? And so, in a weird way, both perspectives are right because both are trying to navigate the worlds that they're in. But when you put them both together, you have a pretty solid freaking human being when you do that. And I sat there in fucking tears, man. Like with my kids next to me, they're like, "Dad, why are you crying?" I was like, because I am Peter Banning in that moment. I'm having the catharsis of looking in the magical water in Neverland when he looks down and he sees the child, him in the water reflecting back in him. And it's a reminder, don't lose who you are, because there is a true story here that unfolds badly for a lot of us. And we know him. You know him in your life. Hell, you might have him in your house, maybe in your neighborhood, maybe at work. When that spirit dies, you have no choice to be old forever. And you can start being old when you're 18 or when you're 10 or when you're 80. The the elderly are not elderly physically always. The elderly, it's when your soul diminishes and when that energy goes away. And what do you become? What does someone become when they lose the Peter Pan energy? They become Captain Hook. They become Captain Hook. And funny enough, even Captain Hook, the clock is ticking, remember? The alligator, tick tock, it's ticking for everybody. So you have a choice. Who do you want to be? You want to be Peter Pan, which is, Peter Banning is heading down that direction of, you know, one or the other, but he was moving towards Hook, right? Because interestingly enough, he was in Merger Acquisitions, and Maggie Smith's character playing Wendy says, "Oh, Peter, you've become a pirate. You're going to be Captain Hook, or you're going to be Peter Pan." And in that moment, 2024, I wasn't fully gone yet, but I felt the pressure. I made a promise to myself, damn it, and I hope you do too. Stay Peter Pan. Stay Peter Pan. What do you think about that, Rob? That tickled the old nostalgia?
Yeah, yes. And I do think nostalgia is a powerful drug, indeed.
Well, folks, look, that was a trip down memory lane. That was a beautiful thing. I want to move into, maybe you can challenge me here and look at some of the Dwayne, get off my lawn. That's right. Don't be that with a hook on your hand. Get off my lawn. Um, all right, so we're starting something new. I'm trying to refine this part of the stream where I do a little bit of storytelling without a net. I mean, the whole thing is really, but I had asked you, and what I want to do for future guests as well is to have them come on. And I actually think the accident today makes sense. It makes sense for that person to join me at the top of the stream. So maybe they're there with me as I'm telling the story to kind of get them in that frame of mind. We talk a little bit. They get to be kind of an audience member. That'd be kind of fun.
Oh, by
And
the way,
then,
it was
yeah,
it was Brad. Brad is the
it was Brad.
co-worker. Yeah, it was Brad.
Hey, hold on. Yeah, Brad, I'm here. Yeah, it's freaking Brad, dude. That name was just a beautifully selected name.
No offense to
Um,
anyone out there named Brad, but it is a very like corporate sounding name.
that's right. So, did you bring a few things? Because what I want
Yeah.
we're gonna do here, and for those of us who join in the replay for the first time, Rob has a few items. He's gonna show me these items, and he's three of them. Okay, he's gonna show me the items. I have not seen them. We haven't talked about them. I just said, hey, bring three things to the stream. He's going to try to show them on the camera. I'm going to try to decipher what they are. And then I'm going to try to spin a yarn and tell a story about it. And listen, Rob, you could be the judge. If you see me faltering and, give me some grace. But if you see me kind of screwing up and like, you could be like, hey, buddy, it's okay. You're a human being. But maybe I can put something together and
Okay.
uh, and
Okay.
spin something about it. So I'll let you start, and if you have any words to start with, we can do that, or we can just jump right into it.
We can jump in if you
Okay.
want to. The first one I got here is a photo I took myself of Lake Erie during the
Oh man, is that sunset?
aurora borealis.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, it's kind of reflecting. There
N-
we go.
No, I got you. Oh my. Okay, so that light in the sky that I'm seeing, that is not like sun
That's
rays like a sunset. That's
now.
that's like northern light stuff that you're talking
Yes.
about.
Hmm.
Okay, well, Rob just showed me a picture of Lake Erie, which is about 30 minutes north of where I'm at, about what, 3 minutes of where you're at, north of where you're at.
Yeah.
During now, this was that during the time of the aurora borealis, by the way, when it was really like prominent here. Is that kind of where you
Yes.
were? Okay,
Yes.
all right. Oh yeah, we didn't think this through. Like, would you have to hold it the whole time? You can if you want, or I could keep referencing it. I'll let you play the role of what is not Vanna White, but like Price is Right, where they bring the thing.
Let's do that.
Yeah, every once in a while, if you there it is. So all right, so the object represents Lake Erie and Aurora Borealis. Okay. I got to tell you, I have two mini stories that come to mind right now. The first one is when I see Lake Erie, I can't help but remember the time my grandfather told me he was shipwrecked on an island on Lake Erie. Now I don't know how much of this is truth and myth, but you can ask Corey. We were reading some old press clippings of a newspaper called the Cleveland Press. It was before, and I shouldn't say before, it competed with the Cleveland Plain Dealer. But at the time of newspapers, the Cleveland Press and the Plain Dealer, when written language and journalism and stuff like that was local and funded, and we had stuff happening there. It wasn't taken over by hedge funds. But basically, there were two papers, and my grandmother wrote for the Cleveland Press as a food editor, and she's still alive. She's in her 90s. That's the grandmother that's been kind of dealing with a couple of falls I was telling you about, Rob. So she's hanging in there. But my grandfather, her late husband, my grandfather who passed away, he was a sailor. He loved sailing, and he had a boat. He worked his whole life going from the east side of Cleveland, and he ended up getting a boat after working at East Ohio Gas for many years. And he was part of I think it was, I don't know if it was the Mentor Yacht Club, but it was like he had a sailboat. My grandfather had a sailboat. And I never got lost with him, but he would always tell me stories about going out on Lake Erie when the water was really choppy and really crazy. And he would always say, listen, people complain about the ocean and that's very real, but don't sleep on Lake Erie because Lake Erie is shallow. And when those waves are crashing and they're going up and down, it is violent. And people have died out on this lake. And I remember him telling me a story that he went out with a friend of his and they were sailing and they ended up getting caught in a storm. And there was a moment where I don't know how this works in nautical terms, but they had to decide really quickly whether they wanted to come back and make it to shore. But they also saw a small island. I don't know which island it was. I don't even think it was like a populated island like Kelly's Island, like we have here in Lake Erie near Cleveland, or Put-in Bay. It was just a small piece
Well, there's a
of
few.
land.
There's a few out there.
Right? There's a bunch of, and there's also ones that are like land that kind of pile up. And almost not like sand dunes, but maybe like land dunes. Either way, he's out there and it's the middle of the night and he's talking, he's telling the story. He's like, I'm out there, the storm is going and the lightning's crashing and the boat is going up and down and like a roller coaster. And eventually we end up on this small little island with a couple of trees. They had no they had no provisions besides what they had in the boat. There was no way of communicating back then. I think this was back in the 80s, maybe 70s, so not like cell phones or GPS or
Was
any of
it?
that stuff.
Did they have a radio for their boat or?
they had a rated, but there was all kinds of issues with the communication. And now this is my grandfather's story, so this is a story I'm telling you. Now, how much he elaborated or exaggerated, I don't know.
How
But
much
what
he
I do
big
know,
fished it.
yeah, well, you know what? I think there was a little bit of that. But what's funny is Corey and I found a clipping of this shipwreck that was reported in the Cleveland Press. And he talked about it when he was out there, and they were out there, I think, for maybe 1 to 2 days before the Coast Guard came out and rescued them. And when I saw that picture of Lake Erie, for some reason, I know you got the Aurora Borealis, but I couldn't help but think about what a badass my grandfather was, stuck on an island somewhere out there on that lake, surviving with his friend, having a sailboat crashed into an island. Here's the other thing I'm thinking about, and this is a tiny little story, a micro one. That Aurora Borealis was so magical, dude. When Corey, myself, and our three kids, one of the best memories I ever had was we have a little school that I went to school here. Just I live only a few blocks from it, my elementary school. So I'm literally swimming in memories every day. I started here as a kid thinking, oh, I'm going to get the dust of this old town off my feet and I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to go to New York and become Marlon Brando. And I went there and I ended up coming back and I literally lived 2 blocks away from my elementary school, which is such a gift for a storyteller, as you can imagine. But at the time, it felt like a curse. It felt like I came home, I failed. I'm living in this town. I'm where I went to school, hiding myself because I don't want to be seen by all the people that I told that I was going to go out to conquer the world. But now I'm telling these stories, and this school has this amazing parking lot where it's situated right against the woods, and there's this beautiful field and this wide open sky. It's almost like I'm only describing this because I spent time there. It's a little bit of a transition, like in Central Park, when you're in the middle of New York City, and all of a sudden, boom, man-made or not, man and woman influenced or not, you're in the middle of nature. It feels like you're like, wait a second, I was just walking over a couple of piles of trash, and there was someone screaming at me, and there was rats crawling through the sewer. Next thing you know, you kind of step over the turtles and Splinter, and you're in this oasis. You're in the middle of this beautiful park with bridges and water and people biking, and the energy's changed. This kind of happens here because even though it's in the suburbs, it feels like, wait a second, I'm out in this rural area, and my wife and my three kids would go out every single night and we'd park the car, and all we had to do was look up. No, we didn't have telescopes. We brought binoculars, but we had no real equipment, but we just looked up, and I couldn't believe that gift of looking up and seeing the paint in the sky. The Aurora Borealis. What a beautiful thing. So that's a little story, micro story that I think about when you show me that picture. There it is. This is a 2 for 1, Rob. You got two more images? You got two? What it's like
I got two more things. This
you want
one's
another
weird.
one? Okay.
This one's weird. I did a volunteer at like a book like recycling place, and I found this book, and I just thought it was so weird, and I thought it'd make a good prop for like a movie or something
Oh
sometime.
boy. I think I'm gonna this is holy shit. Okay. You didn't know. Okay, you ready for this? This is I got a story for you. I got a story for you.
It
This
says
is when I
fleas, by the way.
fleas. Now, just real quick before I got the story in my brain, it just came up. I caught it. Story catching live. I caught it, and I'm about to tell it. And there's no net. We're live. Is that a was that a book cover? You said that wasn't vinyl, right? That's not an album
Yeah, this is a
cover.
book. This is a
A
book.
book cover.
It's a book about different types of bugs, and this one's
Okay.
called bloodsuckers, and
Okay.
this is like a specific one that's about fleas.
All right. Well, this is as I saw this, the story immediately came to my mind. And then the thought occurred to me, like, I don't know if you should tell this story, but you know what? I'm a human being, I'm a storyteller, and this isn't groundbreaking, and I'm going to tell it. When I see that, it reminds me of the time that I lived in a house with fleas for a week. So we lived in the country, my mom, my brother, and I say country is more township, but this house we lived in was from Civil War era, 1800s, and one of these cellars that you would go down. Do you remember the crypt keeper from Tales of the Crypt? You go down that spiral staircase and the stone, and that little guy scares you. He still scares the shit out of me. I know he's a puppet. He still scares the shit out of me. Yeah, where he's like, as a kid, I'm still having nightmares. It had one of those basements. Rob, it had a crawl space. So when you would go down in the basement was dirt, and there was stones everywhere, and it had a little crawl space. And I swear to God, I'd go down there. Sometimes I'd play hockey, and then my brother and I put a wrestling mat down there, and we did wrestling moves in the basement. Literally, like the Hart basement, Stu Hart stretching Bret Hart with the sharpshooter. We're down there doing wrestling moves. This is the nature of this house,
Jesus.
okay? And there was a crawl space where you had the way how old the house was to work on the pipes or the plumbing. You had to crawl through the crawl space, and it was so dark and so deep that when you looked into it looked like a black hole. And every once in a while, I'm not kidding you, I saw eyes. I saw Rob. I saw eyes. I saw
How does
eyes.
how does this relate to fleas? Get there for me.
Okay, now I just wanted to give you a little texture. I just did a little Charles Dickens for you. Okay, I'm going. I won't go room by room, but here's the basement. I just wanted to give you the age of the house. Okay, let's
Sure.
move up to the top floors. So, why does that flea remind me? Okay, well, we had a Siamese cat. We called the cat Kitty, not inventive, and this is our first cat.
Creative.
Creative, yeah, we were like Kitty, and my mom would let this cat go and sun itself out in the lawn. And we moved from sort of inside the city limits to this township. And so the cat would go out and it would roll on the lawn. Well, the lawn in the city was, treated and it had all this stuff. In the country, things are wild as shit out there. You're rolling around. You're not rolling around on chemical green anymore. You're not rolling around. You're rolling around in real organic stuff. And the cat ended up, even with a little collar, ended up getting fleas. And the cat brought the fleas back into the house. And my mom, God bless her, did her best. She was working mom, public school teacher, didn't have a lot of time, and didn't notice how bad. But the fleas, because the entire above the basement I just described to you, we had carpet, but it was old and it was thick, and there was a flea infestation. Are you ready for this? Ready to want to have a little stomach turn? I'd be sitting there, and I'm a kid, and I didn't
Doink.
understand.
Doink.
Jump, jump on my leg. I had fleas jump. Rob, I'm sitting there. We're watching professional. Think about this. We're watching professional wrestling. I'm 12 years old. I'm casually wiping fleas off my knee,
Yeah,
and I
because they're just,
remember
and you can see them. You can
you can
see them
see
jump
them jump.
from. Yep. Yep.
And now listen. Now listen. Tell me when I'm telling lies, and I don't want to say anything about you. I was very privileged, but we also went through many years where things were rough. And if you come from a situation ever where not only this was a circumstance of not it wasn't it was just my mom didn't have a lot of resources, probably should have done preventative stuff with the cat, and then it just got out of control. And then once it does, it's really hard to control. But it also is something I've experienced when I lived in apartments with cockroaches, and when you live in situations of poverty, or even just situations, especially when you get in the country. This is a real thing. So you got fleas in urban life, and you got fleas in rural life. And we had fleas in rural life. And I remember a week, dude, we were living that way. And I remember sleeping at night and just being afraid that I'd be covered in fleas. I could feel that. And here's the crazy part. You know how OCD I am about like illness and stuff like that. I didn't think back then what a freaking health hazard that was. Do you know the diseases that could have? The damn plague was probably communicated through fleas. Here I am. I'm sitting there watching
I
professional wrestling. I got fleas next to me. Might as well take up a. Hey, why don't you sit on the couch, have a cigarette to the
I think
flea?
it
They're like,
was I think it was fleas, and it was hamsters. I believe was what it ended up being. It was not rats. It was like hamsters or something
ah.
silly like that,
But the
like
transition,
gerbils
right,
or
from those
something.
some sort of rodent, of course. There's always a
Yeah.
flea and a rodent situation. But let me tell you this, and I'll end the story this way. We ended up getting the fleas. My mom, they had to fumigate the entire house. And it was probably just unbelievably dangerous chemicals, but they fumigated. We had to leave for a weekend. We stayed at a Holiday Inn 5 miles down the road. And I have to tell you, it was kind of a blessing because our house there, it was the summertime where we didn't have air conditioning. and we had
Oh, so
fleas.
then this was good. Then you went to the hotel and you're like, let's get
I'm
fleas
living
all the time.
I'm living, dude. I go to the hotel exactly. Well, I go to the hotel. They had a pool, they had air conditioning. It felt like, and most people are like, "Ooh, hotels." That felt like a damn hospital to me.
And what's
It
so
was clean.
funny is
It was
it's
beautiful.
grosser. It's grosser than your house, though.
That's right. It is.
Even
But
with the fleas.
you can understand my state of mind though, and I'll tell you
Sure,
this:
because you're a kid. You don't
I'm a
know any
kid.
better.
We got the fleas fumigated. Two endings to this. The first ending is that was summer when I went to school the next year. That school year, but basically in August, they did a whole thing where they said, "Where did you go for vacation?" And everybody shared their wonderful vacation stories. They went to Prague. Some of them went on a cruise. Some of them went to
Prague.
some of them went
Jeez.
to some of them went to Spain. Some of them went to Mexico. I came in fully, and I'm not even kidding you, so excited to tell people that I went to the Holiday Inn. And I thought I was coming in like Timothy Chalamet was feeling last night when the Knicks crushed the Cavs. I was that hot. I was coming in arrogant, like, guys, you won't believe this. And I went last, and everybody told their story, and I got smaller and smaller and smaller. And I remember telling the story of going to the hotel. I didn't have any other story. I remember everybody chuckled, laughed at me. And I remember being like, man, it's bad enough to have fleas, but then to be the kid, to be the dirty kid that then doesn't even know how to take a vacation, that was something that I kind of contemplated. But from that, I have to tell you, I have a lot of respect for my mom and what she went through to kind of keep things going despite all of that. Because if it was bad when we were kids, just like the Hook story at the top, if it was bad when you're, imagine if you're an adult, a responsible adult, trying to take care of that, she must have been stressed out of her mind. So God bless her for doing the best she could do. And the fleas, we got rid of it. The last ending to this, there was always, I gotta tell you, this weird chemical smell that never went away.
I think it's really kind of blows my mind that they'll put like a chemical bomb in your place and it's like, oh, cool. Yeah, you're good to go back.
And I got to tell you, I swear to God, I carry health issues just from the day from stuff like that. It reminds me, you watch the old videos of when they sprayed the kids for back in the 50s, and they're like, yeah, what was it? Not
I
DEET, or it
mean,
was something. It was like, it's
it was
crazy.
DEET. Yes, it was
Okay, it
DEET.
was
It
yeah,
was DEET. It
right,
was in the mosquito stuff.
right.
Um, you know, it's ridiculous because it's just, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But I've got one more for you.
We got one more, dude. Okay,
Yes.
so far, you did you think you were so far? You know, I was riffing some stories there, dude. I don't want to get too arrogant, but if I get 2 out of 3, if I get 3 out of 3, this is a successful stream. So I'm ready.
This one's fun. This one's fun.
Okay,
This is a blast from the past. We'll see if
okay.
you remember this cover.
Oh my god!
From the summer of 1989.
Why? And now I see that's Ghostbusters 2, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I got a story for you. So I have told the story many times on my podcast, 7 minute stories. I've told the stories many times where one of the first movies that I felt bad for, not bad, that it was like inappropriate for me to watch, and this is from my mom and my parents' perspective. I've cited it as Demolition Man. I want to revise this because actually it was Ghostbusters 2. I saw Ghostbusters 2 at my Uncle Chris's house. He had a satellite dish. I'm talking about the one where if you filled it up with water, you could turn it into a pool kind of satellite dish. I'm talking Contact, where you could literally, like, the cover of Contact with what's my girl's name? What's her name? The actress. Um,
Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster. You know, on the cover where it has that like the satellite dish, that's the size of his satellite dish, and it beamed in one night Ghostbusters 2. And I have to tell you, I don't know why, and maybe it was because you said 89, so I was 6. Yeah. I was watching it and I actually got really scared because in the movie, if I remember correctly, there's that guy in the painting, right? There's this dude who's like in the painting and
Vigo.
Vigo, right? And you go to it's like in an art museum, and that becomes sort of a portal to ghosts and stuff like that. That painting scared me half to death. I also have to admit, I had a pretty big crush on Sigourney Weaver. And I'm gonna be serious with you. 6 years old, I saw Sigourney Weaver and I thought, man, I cannot wait to grow up. If I gotta tell you, because isn't it Peter Venkman? I can't remember the character played by Bill Murray. He kind of has a relationship with Sigourney Weaver, correct? Okay, so in that second movie specifically, I remember watching it and sneaking watching it downstairs at my uncle's place because it streamed in through the satellite dish. All the adults were asleep, and I remember being both terrified. I literally was scared. I was a scared kid, but there was something about it that was really eerie, and it has this very weird. It's funny you bring this up, dude. I just had a dream last night about Ghostbusters and Slimer. It is the weirdest thing, and that you brought. I swear to you, I had a
Well,
dream
it's not
about
that weird if
Ghostbusters.
you're friends with me. I mean,
That's right. I probably subconsciously picked it up. But dude, I'm sitting here like as a kid watching this. I watched the whole movie. I remember the I remember the painting coming alive. Is that the one with the goo? It's like it's in the
yes,
sewers. Okay, so the goo or the ecto, like it's in the sewers. I remember the colors of that, and then I remember Sigourney Weaver, and she um, in the first one she's possessed, right? In this one, I can't quite remember.
yes.
Okay,
This one, it's the her boss who at the museum gets
uh,
possessed, and he
gotcha.
shows up as a like haunted nanny, like with
Yes,
a yeah flying through the
and
sky.
there's a baby. She has a baby too, right? Doesn't
Correct,
Sigourney Weaver have the
correct.
okay?
Baby Oscar.
Baby Oscar, and it's not Peter Venkman's. It's right. It's not Peter Venkman's.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So I just remember watching this movie and thinking two things. One, I don't think this was rated R. I think it was PG-13, but I felt after streaming this on a satellite dish at my uncle's at 6 years old or whenever this came out, I remember thinking, I just watched a rated R movie. I've become an adult. I also,
Ghostbusters 2.
I know. I listen. I was very listen. My mom was very protective of like content and like movies I saw. Like I wasn't allowed to watch GI Joe. I wasn't allowed to watch
I
anything
get
with
that.
guns or
GI
the
Joe, I
military.
get. This isn't guns.
I know. I know. I was
This is
allowed to
these
watch when
guys
the
are plumbers. These guys are basically ghost
I
plumbers.
know. Okay, so I remember that, and I also and I would say this: I felt like I watched a rated R movie. Okay, I'm trying, and it's not an obviously this is kind of a hacked together story, but let me give you an ending to it, which is I remember feeling like I watched a rated R movie. I remember wanting to grow up because the two people that I wanted to hang out with were Sigourney Weaver and whoever played Janine.
That would be Annie Potts.
I liked her in Designing Women. I loved her in that. And I
Well,
remember as a kid, right?
this
She
is
was
from
great, right?
1989. This is an original Rolling Stone
Is it
from the
really?
year that. Yes, it is. My nephew, God rest his soul, gave this to me
Oh,
as a Christmas gift one year because he knew what a big Ghostbusters fan that I am. And I remember personally, I remember seeing this on the shelf, like at
okay.
the store when I was a kid. Like I remember owning this
I
magazine.
remember that cover. I for sure.
Yeah,
And what it is, I remember the juxtaposition of Sigourney Weaver and the color of her dress with them and their uniforms. It's just a really well put together cover image. It's very visually. It's just great. It's just great. And then you have obviously you have Bill Murray. You have Dan Aykroyd, and then dude, that's Aykroyd, right? And then
Ernie
um
Hudson.
he Ernie Hudson, it looks like he's 42 still. They did I think they did a couple of interviews about him and his regiment. He just is active, he lifts. I think he's 80 years old. I think.
He's
He's
extremely active. As a matter of fact, a couple of friends of mine are making a proton pack that's a Winston specific, and we met him and we were talking to him about it, and that man is in amazing shape. He just,
He
holy moly.
Yeah, I listen, if and I
He
talked
does
about so
push-ups and sit-ups every day.
yeah,
Push-ups and sit-ups every day. And just
you know
watches
what's
what he eats.
hold on one second. You know what's funny? I didn't show anybody this, but before I had a bunch of calls today, I have a couple of recordings. I'm going into Ernie Hudson mode. Listen, I was rocking this, bro. Before the stream, I was rocking this. I'm telling you, this is how I'm doing it. This is my Ernie Hudson.
This is, you
Uh,
know what? You need to do an exercise show that's storytelling while working out.
yeah. Hey, maybe the next one I do, maybe I have to tell a story when I'm lifting the
Burning and
barbells.
babbling with Aaron.
Oh my god. All right, well, let me ask you this question. In all seriousness, a lot of those are memories, but I think I knocked out all three of them. I don't
No,
think I
you
went
did. You
blank.
did. I picked stuff. Well, and I picked stuff. I tried to pick things that you could go a million ways with.
Yep,
Usually, when
you
we've done this before, we've grabbed images off the internet. So when you told me to grab some stuff around my place, I was like,
I
I
like
went
this
for
better, don't you?
pictures. So
I
yeah,
like
I
this
went for
better because it can.
pictures.
I think it's smart. I actually think it's great because it like brings the guest in and they can bring the stuff that they want. Yeah, we told a
Show and
story of
tell.
it's
It's
show and tell,
show and
man.
tell.
And then a weird story with Aaron. I just make up on the fly. I
Yeah, it's
bet you
show
were.
and tell with Aaron Calafato.
Let me ask you a question. Were you surprised by some of the stories that came? Not like I'm not talking ego. I'm just saying, just like when you showed me that Lake Erie, were you expecting a shipwreck?
No, I think I got pretty much what I expected to get.
Okay.
Like from that, like
Did
you
you not
always
expect the
have.
fleas? Did you not expect the
Uh,
fleas?
I think you've actually told me that story before,
Have
like
I?
in just a
Okay.
personal conversation. Um,
But you
so
weren't
I
trying to
forget
set me
what
up with
why.
that. You
No,
just
no, 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 no,
you
no.
that wasn't behind your. Okay, I was just
I've
making sure you weren't
listen.
taking it
I
easy
have
on
been
me.
looking for a place to put this thing forever. I've never seen a book like this before,
It's
so
an
I was like,
incredible cover.
I thought it was weird. I was like, you know what? This would probably make like a good prop or something. I'll grab it. Because when we did the volunteering for the books, we had to like sort them by quality and like by condition and stuff. And they said, you know, hey, feel free to take anything you like. And this that was the only thing I took was that book.
That is
Just because I
wild.
thought it was so weird and like unique. And the movie we're making is about a scientist, so I figured maybe this could go in his lab or something.
Listen, I tried to prompt you on it before, and you could say what you want to say, but like I said, uh, I'm building this stream. I think now that we got a nice formula here, I can feel it. Like I have a feeling that this is going to be something that can be repeatable. I've been testing it for a while, and I appreciate you doing this with me. But if you want, especially for folks in replay, can you talk a little bit about what are you working on? Because I know you've been talking to me privately about it, but can you talk
Um,
about it?
a little bit, yeah. I wrote something after my best friend had passed away in 2018, and I've been kind of like working and kind of working on that for a while and sort of gestating it. And we're just now starting to reach the phase of like making it a reality. And we're doing a table read tomorrow. So, and you're reading for the lead character. So,
I am. No, honored and excited to do it, man. That's it. I know I have the invite. Mike sent me the invite. Mike from the Cleveland Film Commission sent me that for like 8 p.m. tomorrow. So, dude, I think it'll be great. And I think so much of what that script and what I think the film can be, honestly, is it's tied into so many of these stories that we've been talking about tonight. It started the stream with Hook, this idea of nostalgia, and you talked about being a drug. To me, it really is like a way to kind of transcend time and go back to feelings and experiences without
you
looking at it
know,
in a linear way. You know what I'm saying? And I think
you're
that
you're
yours does that a little bit too. The film, or I won't give it up, but you play with the idea of past and future and kind of like generations and so anyways, I think we're on this. We're all at least storytellers now, and at least where my storytelling mind has been is kind of in this nostalgic place kind of thing. Yeah,
you got to be careful with nostalgia. If you're gonna go back, you got to say
you
something new.
that's right.
Is sort of how I feel about it because to dwell so much on the past that's an already lived experience,
Yeah.
and it's great to go back and do replays and reruns and stuff. But I always feel like if you spend too much time there without doing anything new,
You got to do something
it
new.
can be, yeah. So with us, with the film that we're doing, it's about grief, and it's
Mhm.
got like the trappings of some nostalgia, but it's a story about grief and about video games and about closure. So
Well, I think it's going to be great. I'm glad to be a part of it. How about this last minute kind of improv? You may not have something, dude. Let's just do it though. You brought 3 items to show people it's not rigged. Do you have anything around you that you could bring out and just put in front of the screen? Anything, and let's see if you can stump me. I'll do a five, not even a 5 minute story. Let's see if you can bring something out. We haven't talked about this. Let me see if I can. Is that 8 millimeter? Is it 8 millimeter? Really? Okay. Interesting. All right, so I got a story right away. The reason why when you brought that camera up, I'm looking at this. Is there a particular brand? Is that Kodak? Is that Canon?
Canon. It's a
Oh wow.
Canon
Okay.
Zoom 8.
All right, I got a story. Let me catch a story. Here it is. I caught it. All right. It's here. Let me tell it. So I remember being back in college. I didn't know what I wanted to do in high school, but the one thing I found out was I loved performing, I loved monologues, and I loved watching movies. And I had a friend who's still a filmmaker, by the way. He runs a rental house out in, I think it's Calabasas, California. But we went to high school together. We roomed together in college. And I remember he had and was advocating for not 8 millimeter. He had an 8 millimeter camera, just like you, kind of as like a prop, but he was advocating for 16 millimeter film.
I've
16
got two.
millimeter. Do you? That's amazing.
I think this is a 16 millimeter, actually, this other one.
That's okay. So he was really, there's 16, and then is there 35 too, Rob? Is it 35
Yes.
millimeter? Okay.
There's also
And
70 millimeter as well.
okay, now 16 or 35 millimeter, is that where a lot of films were made in? Were they made in 16 predominantly? Like the films that we would see in in like the 90s, would they make it on 16 millimeter?
35.
35 millimeter.
35.
Okay. So he had a couple
A
of those
lot of
props.
so a lot of low budget
Yeah,
films were shot on 16, like indie
understood.
films.
Okay. So I remember he had an 8 millimeter prop. And one of the things we were doing in college, we were trying to make these movies. And he wrote Kodak. And he ended up getting, I believe it was 16. So it wasn't 35, it was 16 millimeter because it was like an independent film. But he ended up getting a ton of this for free from Kodak. And we ended up shooting 2 films, short films, using 16 millimeter film. And I remember what a big deal this was for him at the time, because at the time, the digital sort of qualitative nature of it, it just looked like a home video, right? And not stylistically, not because you were trying to look like VHS core. It was just literally looked flat and digital and shitty. And then you compared it to the imperfection of film. And that's what I remember him talking about. He would say, there's the imperfection of film that actually gives it that three-dimensional quality. And I remember him pining over this and writing Kodak. And I helped him write these letters, Rob. It was like, we're 2 students here at
There's
Bowling Green State University. We're trying to do this stuff. And he wrote Kodak and they sent it. And I got 2 films that you've never seen before. Only Corey has seen them. They're in the vault. And actually, a few of them might be online. But, anyways, they were student films. And I got to be a young actor, poorly acting, in in several independent films in college on not 8 millimeter, but 16 millimeter film. And I remember sitting back and watching the screening of the film and in our dorm. And as I leaned back, Rob, and I thought to myself, damn, I'm an actor, I'm on film. I looked back over at him and he's sitting at his desk and he's has just like complete bliss because of what he accomplished. And right over his shoulder was that prop 8 millimeter camera you showed me right at the beginning of the story.
Yeah, both of these work. These were
Oh,
gifts. These were gifts from a filmmaker named Robert Banks, who does
really?
shoot
You didn't tell
movies.
me that.
Yeah, so he shoots movies on expired film. he makes he makes experimental films on 35 millimeter, but he gifted me those. We were filming it. Another project I'm working on right now is a documentary about Robert Banks. I'm in the process of editing that. The director is Mike Wendt, and I'm about halfway through the edit of that film. And
Dude,
he gifted me those two cameras, and they both work.
that's incredible. That's amazing, man. Um, Rob, thanks for the extra story.
Yeah,
I love, like I said, I love doing this. I know you got stuff going on, and I want to. I don't know, man. I'm gonna be having guests and stuff like that, but I don't think there's a way that I cannot have you be a regular, like you do this regularly with me. Because even if we have guests come in and out, I want you to be there. If you can't, great. But to have you be sort of that regular who keeps coming back, or we do this is fun as hell. I really, really appreciate it.
happy to do
Um,
it.
Thank you, man. All right, I'm gonna cut you loose now, and I'm gonna say a few things to the folks on the stream here, and then I'm actually gonna stream some 7 Minute Story Radio. But I appreciate you joining me. Thank you again this evening, and I'll talk to you soon, man.
Take it easy.
Montague, Montague. Thank you. Uh, Rob is one of my. Why did I sound like Christopher Walken there? Wow, Rob is one of my oldest friends. He is. Now it's funny. I considered him a new friend, but it's been almost a decade now. So he's been a friend of mine for some time. An amazing artist. I really love Rob, and he has done he has done a lot of amazing work as a director and award-winning films. Like he has a real perspective. You know, there's storytellers out there, and storytellers need inspiration. Whenever I need inspiration for story or someone to hash out art and story and narrative with, I talk to Rob Montague. So I appreciate him being here. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually keep this stream going, but I want to introduce everybody here to a couple things. First, I don't know if it got pinned in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and try to pin it in the chat. If you haven't yet, if you like the stories that you heard tonight and like this vibe, you'll probably like my podcast, 7 Minute Stories. It's reached over 30 million people in the last 2 years. It's become kind of the leading short form autobiographical storytelling podcast in the world. And that's true. So if you like storytelling and you enjoy that, please check that out. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure I pin a way for you to connect with that in the chat. Go ahead and if you want, just go to the link that's pinned in the chat here, and it'll take you to my website, 7minutestoriespod.com. There you can actually bypass the algorithm and just get an email notification, email once a week, with two things: the audio versions of my 7 minute stories, which are free and commercial free, and same with the written versions, which is even a shorter adapted version called Stories in a Snap. And that will be sent to you just in one email: a story for you to read, a story for you to listen to, one email a week, no algorithms, always free, right for you. So check that out if you're interested in hearing more storytelling in podcast form. Okay. I'm gonna end the stream here. By the way, like I said, thanks again for Rob. We've been doing this for an hour, but I'm gonna end the stream here by playing about an hour of 7 Minute Story Radio. And so 7 Minute Story Radio is a new property that I launched on my podcast, and it basically is 3 or 4 seasons that we've archived on my website, and it's just stories 24/7. You can go and check out 7 Minute Stories Radio anytime. So if you're feeling like, the podcasts are great and you can go to 7 Minute Stories and you can listen, you can scroll through, but if you're just feeling like in a more radio passive mood where you have it in the background, you don't have to worry about changing episodes or auto playing, you just want it to be sort of that background noise, you can go to 7minutestories.com/7ms radio. I'm sorry, that's 7minutestories.com/radio. And I'm going to stream it here on YouTube for everybody. I'm going to stream it for about an hour. So kick back, take a listen. I'll check back here in an hour and we'll officially end the stream there. But I figured that'd be a fun thing to do. So just hang tight and we'll get going. Crossed my mind. I threatened to take down the company, to bring in the Better Business Bureau, everything I could think of that sounded intelligent in the court of law. Finally, they relented and said,
Right into the
"Fine, we'll
middle
give
of
you
the story, but just follow
the whole
along here and
refund
enjoy.
plus the tip."
Kick back,
I
relax.
said, "Thank you." I closed the app. I deleted the app. We're done. But the story's not over because my mind's churning at night, laying in bed. I couldn't sleep. All I could think about is he out there? Is he out there stealing more apple pies? What's his next clue? Where's the next question mark? Where's the Riddler? And how can I prevent this from happening? I thought, what would Batman do? What kind of tools would he use? You know what I'm saying? On the old utility belt. Well, I thought I could do something even better. I was like, why don't I get high powered security cameras around the perimeter of the house so I can always see what's happening on a big television? And if this ever happens again, I'll know and I can jump right into action. So I ended up making a huge purchase that night. I'll say this, a $10 apple pie from McDonald's ended up being close to five to $800 in security equipment. But guess what? To the Riddler, I want to let you know, I'm always watching.
7-Minute Stories is created and performed by Aaron Calafato. Our senior audio engineer is Ken Went. Our resident artist is Pete Whitehead. Original music by TJ Duke. If you or your company needs help starting a podcast, Aaron and Ken's company, Valley View, does just that. Reach out to them at valleyview.fm. Special thanks to our partners at Evergreen Podcasts, and I'm Corey Burse. Make sure to tune in next week for another story.
I was breaking into my own house, trying to sneak in through the window. I smelled like smoke and booze, and my mom had just pulled into the driveway. This wasn't going to end well. Find out how I got here and what happens next after the music.
You're listening to 7-Minute Stories with Aaron Calafato. This is Season 4.
For those of you who are smokers, no offense intended, please understand that. This is just an experience I had. And as you could hear in the preview, it had some very hilarious consequences. So first, this all happened when I was in 8th grade. 8th grade was a rough year. By the way, I think it's a rough year for a lot of people. Hormones, feeling isolated. I still hadn't dealt with my parents' divorce in the way I probably should have processed that, carried a lot of anger. I was 5 foot 80 pounds, literally 5 feet tall, 80 pounds in 8th grade. So I was a shrimp. Girls didn't really like me. I liked girls that didn't like me. I was pissed off about that. Didn't fit in with a lot of the kids there. Couldn't find my group, my tribe. And eventually I did though, but the kids I fell into, they all kind of had a hard time coming up too. And I really didn't compare to them, but they were the ones that accepted me, didn't judge me, but they were also the ones that were smoking at an early age and experimenting with drugs. But they were loyal, and I appreciated and needed that loyalty. And so there's like two parts of me. There's the true self, myself, who I knew was just going through things and needed to find my way through it. And there was another part of me that was angry and wanted to kind of rebel and needed a way to get that anger out. And so as I'm hanging out with this new crew of kids, I felt a little left out, and they all smoked when we would walk home from school. Everyone's smoking. I was like, maybe I should try to participate in that. So there was this girl in my math class. I won't say her first name. I don't even need to make it up because I know she probably lives around here where I live. Either way, I knew she smoked, and she was actually a really nice girl. But I asked her, hey, I'm thinking of trying smoking. Do you have any cigarettes I could borrow? She's like, you smoke? I was like, I'm looking into it. And she goes, I think I can give you a couple cigarettes. I'll bring them tomorrow. Next day comes, she comes to math class. She's got it in her book bag. We have to be very covert about this. By the way, if I get caught, I'm in trouble. I was suspended, all this stuff. So the stakes are already really high. She brings in this crumpled up pack of Marlboro Reds. There was like 3 cigarettes in there. I had never touched a cigarette, came close to a cigarette. Neither of my parents smoked. It felt like I was breaking the law. And I think technically I was breaking the law. Anyways, doesn't matter. She hands me the cigarettes and I sneak them in my book bag. And from math class to the end of the day, I'm paranoid. I am for sure that I'm going to be found out. All day long, I think teachers are looking at me funny.
I get on the bus at the end of the day. I swear the bus driver's kind of eyeing me. I'm thinking they know. Finally, I get to my house. Finally. And luckily, there was about an hour before my mom got back from work, usually. And so I wanted to try this cigarette, but I knew I couldn't do it in the home, in the front or the backyard. What if my neighbors saw me? We were in the country, but they could still see. So my thought process was, I'm going to go into the back of the woods. We had this giant woods in the back of our house at this time. And I'm going to go back as far as I can with enough time to get back so my mom won't know what's going on. I grabbed some matches because I didn't have a lighter. So I grabbed matches, the blue tip matches, and a little crumple, a pack of cigarettes, and I go out into the woods. And I went out about a mile, maybe mile and a half. It didn't seem far enough because I kept looking back thinking, what if my mom sees me? What if one of the neighbors see me in the woods? Who knows? Because people came back there. What if they reported me and telephoned my mom? Guess who I saw smoking in the woods? Finally, I said, listen, I've walked far enough. I kind of kneel down next to this tree. I get the little cigarette out. I got my matches and a couple times, try to light it. I'm leaning against the back of this tree, kind of like I'm hiding. I got the cigarette. My hands are shaking. And I finally light the cigarette and I take a puff. And at first I pretend to inhale like I have it in my mouth and I blow out. And I'm just observing, how do I look when I'm doing this? Do I look cool? Does it look natural? The guys think I'm like, I've done this before. And I said to myself, I probably should try to inhale. So I took a puff and I inhaled. And just like the movies, literally, I start coughing uncontrollably. My lungs are burning and I Ralph all over myself. So now, by the way, it's fall. So it's like 40 degrees. I Ralphed on myself. I'm covered in leaves that are sticking to me. And I'm freaking out because now I got to get home. What am I going to do? My mom's going to kill me. I think fast. I run to the creek, which is a little higher than usual because we had a snow and then it melted and the creek was moving. So I took off my shirt. It's 40 degrees. I wrap up my shirt, all the Ralph and the leaves and everything and the smoke smell, and I throw it into the creek and the creek just takes it away. And I'm like, yes. But that I couldn't get the taste of the smoke out of my mouth. Like it was killing me. And I was like, oh, I hate this. And I swear to God, in the creek, sitting up on some rocks, was a 6-pack of Ice House beer, unopened, don't know how it got there. And I just thought, well, maybe I'll just like take a drink of that and that'll get rid of the smoke smell. I was hesitant, but I grabbed a can of this Ice House beer. I open it, it explodes all over me. I'm now covered in beer and I still decide to take a sip to try to get the smoke out of my mouth. I couldn't stand the taste. I take a taste of the beer. That tastes like piss. I spit the beer out. So now I'm covered in beer, smoke and beer on my breath, no shirt, 40 degrees. And I'm sprinting back home because I know my mom's going to be home any minute. And I went so far back in the woods, I didn't want to get caught. So I'm running through the woods. I run up onto our hill and I can see my mom pulling into the driveway. Oh God, she's here. And I have to think fast. I remembered sometimes when my brother and I would forget our house key, we would break in through the back. There was a kitchen window that you could pry open. I found the little metal piece that we used. I pried open the window and now I'm climbing and squirming in like a bug into the house and my book bag's getting caught and my butt's getting caught and I can see my mom's parking and she's about to walk into the house. I finally squirt into the house. I fall into the kitchen. I sprint into the bathroom, lock the door. I start running the bath. As she enters the house and she goes, I'm home. Aaron, are you there? I said, yeah, Mom, just taking a bath, long day. And I sat in that hot bath with the water vapor, cleansing myself with Irish Spring bar soap, cleansing myself that day and for all time. And after that, cigarettes were never my thing, neither was beer. But I did develop a particular affinity to this day for bar soap.
Seven-Minute Stories is created and performed by Aaron Calafato. Our senior audio engineer is Ken Went. Our resident artist is Pete Whitehead. Original music by TJ Duke. If you or your company needs help starting a podcast, Aaron and Ken's company, Valley View, does just that. Reach out to them at valleyview.fm. Special thanks to our partners at Evergreen Podcasts, and I'm Corey Burse. Make sure to tune in next week for another story.
Hi, this is Kim, and I'm giving an intro to 7 Minute Stories, Aaron Calafato's podcast, where he likes to take you on a journey about things in his life. And what I like about his podcast is that it always gives me something to think about or something to smile about. And whenever I see it coming in my podcast feed, it's like a little blip of serotonin, and it makes me happy. So I hope it makes you happy too.
When things get difficult in life, I found a way to go back in time. And I go to a specific place, and when I get there, I get this overwhelming sensation that everything's going to be okay. I want to tell you about this place and how I get there after the music.
You're listening to 7 Minute Stories with Aaron Calafato. This is Season 4.
This place was magical. This place felt like heaven to me as a kid. And I got to spend some time there, a lot of time there in the summer. You'd pull in and it was just hundreds of houses, beautifully manicured lawns, ponds with fountains, smiling faces walking around the neighborhood, people on golf carts. Everyone was relaxed. It felt like the days lasted forever. It felt like no one had a worry in the world. And this is where my grandma and my grandpa lived. Now, they didn't always live there. They both came from very humble beginnings, poor beginnings, but this is where they arrived. And I think that's why the vibe was the way it was there, because it was mostly people who were retired who lived there. So they're all arrived and they're just coasting. They're just relaxing, enjoying the fruits of their labor. And I just loved it. Maybe I was just looking for early retirement early in my life. I loved the way this place felt. I remember my grandmother would take me to the beach. They had all of these ponds and fountains and stuff like that. And there'd be these little beaches you could go to. You could fish, you can kind of go in the water a little bit. And my grandmother would take me to the beach for walks, and I would throw rocks in the water and stuff. And on the beach, I remember, I'll never forget, in the corner of my eye, I saw the shiniest, most alien-like blue rock. It's the only way I could describe it, that I've ever seen in my life. Felt like it was a gift from another planet. And I knew I had to make it mine. So I remember sprinting over to this blue rock, picking it up, looking at it like, oh my God, this is incredible. I run back over to my grandma and I'm like, Grandma, I found the most amazing blue rock. Can you believe it? Look at this blue rock. And she looks at it for a second. She goes, what is that? Where did you get that? I said, I got it on the beach. Do you see this? I'm going to take it home with me. And she looks at it one more time. Her eyes get really wide and she kind of knocks it out of my hand and kicks it. I'm like, Grandma, what are you doing? She wasn't being mean. It was sort of almost protective. And she goes, sweetheart, no, that's not a blue rock. That's goose poop. And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't believe her because I looked around and I did see some goose poop, but this was different. She just didn't understand. I'm like, Grandma, do you understand what you've done? That was hidden treasure. She goes, sweetheart, I promise you it wasn't hidden treasure. You were holding goose poop in your hand. I said, Grandma, but it was rock hard. She goes, I can't explain that. And she walked me over to the clubhouse and she started washing my hands, what felt like for hours, but I loved it. I always loved, and she would do this at the house all the time. She would wash my hands and she would take the water, make it nice and lukewarm. And she'd kind of put the soap on top of my hands and in between and kind of mirror the motion of washing it. I don't know what that was, but I just loved the feeling of being loved like that. And after I washed it, she would kind of dry my hands out and give me a nice fresh towel. Man, it's those things that kind of stick out in my memory. Side note, my grandmother's still alive. And even now, as a man at 40, when I go to visit her, I always ask her, "Grandma, can you wash my hands? Do you mind?" She thinks it's the funniest thing in the world, but she always indulges me, and it's still amazing. I love her for that. But their house, specifically a room in their house, is the place I go back to when times get tough in my life. And I can describe it for you like a photograph. There's a bay window beautifully placed right in front of me. I'm sitting on a couch. There's a TV right in front of that. To the left is the kitchen. My grandmother's cooking marinara sauce and stewing all kinds of meat for a midday slash early dinner. I can smell the meatballs of the pork marinating in the red sauce, and she's starting to get the water ready for the pasta. My grandfather's sitting next to me on his couch, and he's got the plain dealer open, and he's reading about sports, and I can hear the crinkling of the paper in his hands. And on the TV, it's the Ohio State Buckeye game. They love the Buckeyes. And we're watching the game. My grandmother's cheering from the kitchen, and I'm sitting there like a cat as the sun hits me from the bay window, and I'm watching the game. And I remember saying to myself in this moment, at being, 9 or 10 years old, saying, "My God, I love these two. My God, I love this moment. My God, I love this feeling. Never forget this. Always come back to this. Remember, this was real and can be again. And even if it can't be, it happened and you were here." And I'm there right now telling you this story. Got my eyes closed. I'm sitting on the couch. My grandfather, I could just feel his presence, laughing at the articles he's reading and groaning at the articles he's reading and yelling, "First down," at the TV. And even though life has changed and time has changed life, and my grandfather's no longer here, my grandmother's still here, but she's getting older and it's just not the same. When things are tough, I can travel back in time. How do I do it? To that moment, to the moment I'm in right now. All I have to do is close my eyes and remember.
7 Minute Stories is created and performed by Aaron Calafato. Our senior audio engineer is Ken Went. Our resident artist is Pete Whitehead. Original music by TJ Duke. If you or your company needs help starting a podcast, Aaron and Ken's company, Valley View, does just that. Reach out to them at valleyview.fm. Special thanks to our partners at Evergreen Podcasts, and I'm Corey Burse. Make sure to tune in next week for another story.
Hey, everybody, it's Aaron, and you're listening to 7 Minute Stories Radio, streamed worldwide at 7minutestoriespod.com/radio. The 7 Minute Stories podcast is the #1 short form extemporaneous podcast in the world, and you can listen to it in podcast form on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. When you're hungry and you're a kid and you're in school, it just hits differently. I remember being in junior high and feeling hungry and being so overdramatic. I remember saying to myself some days, "I don't know if I'm going to make it." But luckily, there were some particular foods that helped sustain me, that frankly helped me survive through elementary school, junior high, and high school. Some foods you're probably familiar with. Let's take this journey through the school day and into the lunch cafeteria right after the music.
You're listening to 7 Minute Stories with Aaron Calafato. This is Season 4.
I don't know how some people do it. There are some people that are just born and they are able to get up really early. They enjoy it and they feel good. I've never been able to this day. Doesn't matter what time I go to sleep. It's just not natural for me. I need to slowly move into my morning. And as a kid, this is about 6th grade, I wasn't drinking coffee either. So I had to get up, as many of you did, super early in the morning. I walked to school. I'm getting up about 5:45 a.m. Dear God, 6 a.m.? What are we doing here? It's like walking into a Ford factory. I'm just a piece of the machine in the movie Metropolis, just walking along like a robot. But that was how it was. The issue for me was that the last thing I wanted to see at 5 a.m. in the morning was a big pile of hash browns and eggs or cereal or any food. It just made me nauseous. So I didn't eat anything, didn't drink any coffee, maybe had a little bit of water, but that was it. And then I would walk to school. Now, as you can imagine, the issue with this is that by 10:30 a.m., 11 o'clock, my body's eating itself. I feel, and I'm being over dramatic now, and I was over dramatic then in my kid brain, but I felt like I was dying. I thought to myself, I don't know if I can make it. I'm kind of doubled over. I'm tired. I'm falling asleep. It's a disaster. And there was one thing, one domino in this whole process that saved me and sustained me. And it started in music class. Music class was the period right before lunch. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope. And what made this even better was that music class provided sustenance, sustenance I didn't see coming. My teacher was Mrs. Gilbert. Mrs. Gilbert was this gruff lady. She had this music cart, and on the music cart, there was recorders, tambourines, maracas, all the good stuff sort of falling off the cart. She had a record player. She had a cassette player. She had a CD player. She's playing music. And the best part about her class, and the reason why everybody wanted to participate, was that when you got an answer right, she would throw you a little piece of candy, Werther's Original Candy. Now, you can imagine this. She's asking questions like, what instrument is in that song? Everybody's hand is up. They're sweating. They're doing the same thing I'm doing. We're all vying for food. And she's throwing these Werthers for like 30 minutes to different kids. And we're all reaching up and grabbing them like we're at a sports game, grabbing something that they're throwing into the stands. And look, I was pretty good with music and understanding instruments. So I got my fair share of Werthers. Now, here's the thing. I couldn't stand the taste of Werther's. I didn't like it. It tasted weird. I had to stomach this stuff, but like I said, it was sustenance. And look, when you're in need, you can't be picky. You got to do what you got to do. But I also came up, I think, with a pretty ingenious scheme. I was collecting my fair share of Werther's, getting the questions right, raising the hand. I got that part down. But then I only, for the first 2 weeks, ate one Werther's in that class just so that I could stay alive because I was stockpiling it for later. I knew if I could only eat just one a day for 2 weeks and I could get more answers right, now I got a surplus of Werther's that could last me through the year. And it did. And that music class was the most memorable class I've ever had for this very reason. Side note, I'm 40 now and I love Werther's Original. I think it just happens genetically to everybody who turns 40. I'm telling you, something happens with your taste buds or your brain chemistry. Go into anybody's car who's over 40, you're going to find a crumpled up wrapper from a Werther's Original Candy somewhere in the car. Okay, let's get back to school. Music class ends. Now I walk to the cafeteria, and here we are at the main event. I made it to the homeland. I'm ravenous at this point, but right around the corner is glory, my friends. Some of the best food you're ever going to eat. I got my little lunch card, and let me tell you what's on the menu, the food that got me through. First, cheese pizza and pepperoni pizza. I'm always going to go with pepperoni because of the protein, but the rectangle slices, the little square pepperonis that were spicy, don't know how they did it. I always went for the well done piece. I get my chocolate milk on the side with the straw, my fruit cup. I'm good to go. What else do we got? We got cheesy dippers, 4 golden brown but soft breadsticks covered in this gelatinous cheese. Next to it was this meat sauce ragu. Don't know where that came from, but when you dip the cheesy dipper into the sauce, magic happened. I love these most of all. I remember, look, here I'm admitting a sin. As a kid, I would steal money from my brother's room. Who does this? I'm stealing $2 or $3 extra so that I could hit double lunch. I'm going through the line twice to double up on cheesy dippers. They also had this Fiesta Mexican pizza every once in a while, had the bright yellow cheese, The ground up meat, don't know what that was, but it was kind of an interesting switch up on the pizza vibe. And then there were Bosco sticks. Man, you had cheese not on top. They kind of flipped the script on the cheesy dippers. Now it's the cheese ooze inside the breadstick, and you're dipping it in marinara sauce. And don't forget French fries, golden brown. I went through the line twice for these, and I went through this weird phase of eating fries with mustard only for about 2 months straight. Finally, you wanna talk high class? It's Potato Bar. I've done a story about this. The Potato Bar was top tier 5 star. You're standing in line with the biggest potatoes you've ever seen, salted. You got the nacho cheese, the bacon bits, artificial, of course. You got cheddar cheese, you got sour cream, you got butter. Nothing better in the world. And that's what I thought until my perception was recently changed. Over the years, in the light of day, not being a really hungry junior high or high school student crawling his way into the cafeteria, things have become a bit clearer to me, specifically recently when my beautiful wife, Corey, who you know from the podcast, and I went to GFS, Gordon Food Service. It's like a Midwest food distributor. And we went there to get some party trays for a party we're throwing. And in the freezer, I see Bosco sticks. And I'm like, Corey, let's recreate our youth, what it was like to gorge at lunchtime in the cafeteria. She's like, absolutely. We take them home, we put them in the oven, and I take a bite when they're done into this golden brown, stale, dirty piece of bread with non-dairy gelatinous ooze pouring from this stick of carbs. And I swallowed it and I thought to myself, my God, what did I eat all of those years? What have I been sustained on for 20 plus years? Corey said, what do you think? And I said, well, it's complicated. I'm grateful sincerely for that cafeteria, that I always had food to eat. But I'm also grateful that I don't have to wake up at 5:30 a.m. anymore. And I'm grateful I don't have to go to school again. And she said, rose-colored glasses? I nodded. And then I reached into my pocket, grabbed a Werther's Original, popped it in my mouth, and went back downstairs to work.
Seven-Minute Stories is created and performed by Aaron Calafato. Our senior audio engineer is Ken Went. Our resident artist is Pete Whitehead. Original music by TJ Duke. If you or your company needs help starting a podcast, Aaron and Ken's company, Valley View, does just that. Reach out to them at valleyview.fm. Special thanks to our partners at Evergreen Podcasts, and I'm Corey Burse. Make sure to tune in next week for another story.
The clock was ticking. I was only a few days away from Valentine's Day 2024, and I still hadn't gotten a gift for my wife. Now, here's the thing. It wasn't for lack of trying. I had been looking for a while. Let's just say this gift was unique. But then something happened in the 11th hour. Find out if I win the day or if it turned into utter disaster right after the music.
You're listening to 7-Minute Stories with Aaron Calafato. This is Season 4.
This story is coming out February 15th, 2024, which means this happened just a few days ago on Monday, February 12th, 2024. I get a text from a number I don't initially recognize. And the text says, I heard you were looking for statues, ... But before I go to this moment, I got to tell you something first, maybe admit something. I feel like I've become a bad gift giver in these last few years. And this isn't just to my wife or people around me. This has been a gradual thing to friends, family, all that stuff. But I think there's an excuse here. There's a reason. As the years have gone on, and my relationships have gotten deeper. And the more and more I care about the people in my circle I'm getting gifts for, the more I'm afraid I'm going to screw it up. What if they don't like it? It hurts deeper. What if I spend all this money and it doesn't land right? And they're like, yeah, thanks, great. And now I get into my own head when I'm giving gifts. Don't know when it started. I'm kind of a disaster. I'm like the guy that goes out in the fourth quarter and all three quarters I can perform in basketball, right? I'm shooting jump shots. I'm knocking down threes. I'm hitting my free throws. I get to the fourth quarter when it matters. I'm a choke artist. And it's not as if my gifts are bad. They're just really practical. That's what I've done. I've sort of leaned on the practicality of it. A gift card, a gas card, money, because one, it's easy, but two, and this is the truth, I really value practical gifts. I'm not much of a gift receiver. I don't really care that much about gifts, but when someone gives me cash or like a gift card to a restaurant, something practical that's going to actually help me, I really value that. So I've been leaning into that, and I realized that that may not be the best thing for everybody. I was talking to Corey, my wife, who you know from the podcast, and I was talking to her about this crisis I'm having. And she was like, it's not necessarily just the gift. And I interrupted and I was like, well, yeah, it's the thought that counts, right? She's like, no, it's not just the thought. It's the fact that you put thought and the kind of thought and how much thought you put into the gift that when the gift receiver receives the gift, they're like, oh, they really care about me. They must have spent a lot of time and put a lot of thought into this. And that translates into that love language. It's not my love language, but I never thought of it that way. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want people to think that I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Here's a couple bucks in a card. Even though that's valuable to me, I want to be able to let people know I care about them. So I figured Valentine's Day 2024 would be a great opportunity to test this. Corey gave me a great gift idea to practice on. She's been talking nonstop for the past few months about wanting a concrete goose. Do you know what I'm saying? You could drive around the neighborhoods, you look at someone's porch. Sometimes they have them in gardens. There's a whole industry I found out about this. Garden statues. She wants one for our porch. And every time we drive by, she's like, I can't find these. I'd really love one. And in fact, she doesn't want to just buy one and put it on the porch. I think she wants to dress it up. I think she wants to put a little hat on it, a little coat, and people dress these things up. So I thought this is perfect. I didn't want to wait too late. So about 3 weeks before Valentine's Day, I start doing some initial online research. I find a few things on Amazon, not exactly what she's looking for though, because I know exactly what she's looking for. And they're just not the right thing. I'm doing some deeper online research, different stores. I can't seem to find them anywhere. So I figure, a week goes by and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to one of these garden stores. We have about 5 or 6 of them just in the county around us that I know of. So every day in between stuff at work, I'll take a little drive out and I go to the store. And every single time I go, I come back empty handed. Nobody has this concrete goose. Nobody has the concrete goose. Every single place I go to, they have the entire animal kingdom. Squirrels, roosters, they have deer, they have caribou, they have characters I've never even dreamed of. There was one that had like a pig on top of a frog on top of a muskrat. They had everything. No concrete goose. And I would go, there was this one place I went to about 5 miles down the road, and I talked to this woman. I said, please help me. There's got to be a way to get a concrete goose. I need to get this for my wife for Valentine's Day. This is all she wants. She's like, I don't know what to tell you. We buy these in bulk. We're not sure if we're going to get them in season. Sometimes the manufacturer that does the mold, they don't do the mold. You just don't know. The only thing you can do is put your name and your number here, and we'll put a request in for you. And if there's enough requests, we'll call you and we'll get you one. But even if you get one, it's not coming for another 3 months. I can't handle that. This is supposed to be for Valentine's Day. This is all my wife wants. She goes, there might be one other option. And she tells me about this place a county away that specializes in garden sculptures. She gives me the phone number. I'm driving home. I'm calling the number. Ring, ring, ring. No voicemail. I call the next day. Ring, ring, ring. No voicemail. I'm thinking, am I catching them on their lunch? What's going on here? I call for the next week, nothing. At this point, we're only a few days away from Valentine's Day. I've gone on this odyssey. This is like looking for Al Capone's vault, and I'm Geraldo. Nothing's there. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to admit to Corey, I screwed up. I spent all my time and energy on this thing. I had this really great idea, really thoughtful idea, but here's a gift card. But then on February 12th, this past Monday, I get a text that says, "Hey, I heard you're looking for statues." And the funny thing is, it's from the owner of this place that specializes in garden statues. And this woman goes on to tell me she's in Germany. She's in Europe visiting her family. She's not even at the store. And she gives me the cell phone number of a guy named Anthony. So now I'm texting Anthony, and Anthony's texting me back saying, I only stop by the store once a day. He's sending me pictures of different geese that are concrete. Finally, he gets me one that looks perfect. I said, Anthony, the only day I can pick this up is on Valentine's Day. He says, come on up. I got your concrete goose. It was perfect. For her present, this is why I love her. Who asked for something like this? For her present on Valentine's Day, Corey and I drove over to the next county and we picked her up a concrete goose that she's going to dress up in little outfits and put on our porch. On the way back, we grabbed a bite to eat. And you know what? Throughout this journey, I think I became a little bit better of a gift giver. But the one thing that will always remain true, no matter breaking point. We'll dive in right after the music.
You're listening to 7-Minute Stories with Aaron Calafato. This is season 4.
I always was a romantic, embarrassingly so. Don't know why, didn't ask for it. But I started making moves early on, even in elementary school, handing flowers to girls, professing my love. It's just who I was. Now, as I moved through school into junior high, we're talking 7th and 8th grade, those years is when it was really intense. I always wanted to find my true love, my soulmate. I was on a mission. And in those years, when you're that age, it's like every single moment is the most important moment. You know what I'm saying? That's where we're going to start this story. At that time, I met Rebecca. Now, Rebecca was something out of a rom-com, or think of Saved by the Bell when Tori came into the picture. Not a lot of people liked Tori. I did. Rebecca had a leather coat and jeans, ripped up jeans, rock and roll. She sat next to me in history class. And the number one thing I admired about her, besides the fact that she was different and beautiful, was her trapper keeper. Her trapper keeper had pictures of all these rock stars, guitarists, rock legends. And I remember sitting next to her and saying, you know, that's an amazing trapper keeper. I'm a guitar player. She goes, really? I said, yeah. And then I said, you know, in a few years, you're probably going to have a picture of me on your trapper keeper because I'm going to make it as a rock star. She said, really? I said, oh, yeah. I said, but in the meantime, why don't you give me your number? and we can talk, music, all that stuff. And then she slid me her number on a piece of notebook paper. And at the end of the last digit, she had a heart. This was a first for me. I took that number home, and I remember my hand was shaking when I picked up the phone, and I called her. When she picked up her phone, it was really noisy in the background of her house, TVs blaring, babies crying, people arguing. It sounded really chaotic, and she didn't sound or seem as confident as she usually was when I would talk to her in history class. And I said, "Hey, Rebecca, how are you?" She said, "Good. How are you?" She sounded meek. Then all of a sudden, I heard it was her brother say, "Rebecca, get off the effing phone, or I'm gonna kick the living crap out of you and your little boyfriend." I was shocked. I mean, my life wasn't perfect, but to hear something like that kinda makes your stomach kinda turn, and I got a sense of what she was living with, and she said to me, "Hey, I can't really talk, and I don't think we should talk anymore." I said, "Why?" She said, "You don't know my brother." I said, "I can handle it." She goes, "No, he'll hurt you. I can't talk to you again. I'm sorry." She hangs up the phone. Never called her again, and even in school, she never talked to me again. And even though it's a little bit silly when I think back on it now, it felt in the moment like a serious heartbreak. That one stung, but I was on a mission to find true love, and I needed to dust myself off. And I thought maybe it's Monica. I had known Monica through elementary school many years. We were friendly, bordering flirting, and it continued as we got into junior high. And here's the thing, her mom was from Venezuela, and my mom was a Spanish teacher and translator for the courts and was trying to teach me Spanish. I thought the connection is undeniable. I got to make a move. I got to let her know we got to take this from friendship to the next level. But I had to do something romantic, a gesture she would never forget. So I got her one of those necklaces, that have two pieces of one heart. I kept one. I put another one in a little box and I wrote a note in Spanish. My mom helped me, basically professing my love and saying, "Will you take the other half of my heart? If you do, that means you want to date." The next day, she comes up to me. She's holding the necklace. I thought, this is it. It's happening. But what I thought was a smile at a distance was a frown when she walked up to me. She held the other half of the necklace and she said, "I don't want this necklace. I don't want the other half of your heart." And I said, "I'm sorry. I just took my shot." And she goes, "And by the way," and she handed me the note, "I don't even speak Spanish." That one was bad. That one hurt a little bit. That one took some time to recover from. Wasn't sure if I was gonna make it back. And I thought maybe it's Christina. Maybe it's been Christina the whole time. I remembered like a flashback, all the smiles for years from when I had a crush on her in elementary school. Now, as we're about to go into high school, all the years, all the flirtation, all the glances. But the reason why I didn't do anything, the reason why I didn't pursue it was because she was always, quotations, dating Mike. And look, bottom line, Mike was a dick. Mike was that guy. He's like a stereotype from a rom com, the guy who does everything wrong and still gets rewarded. The guy who treated girls, including Christina, badly, but then they're like, "He's just misunderstood. We really like him." And I'm going, "Why are you with this guy who is clearly a dick?" Never understood it. And I thought to myself, maybe I should take a shot. Maybe all along she's had a crush on me and she's been afraid to say something. So I made my move. So I wrote her a letter, probably the most romantic letter any eighth grader has ever written. I'm going to be honest. I folded it up and I handed it to her on recess and I said, "Look, I know this comes as a shock, but read this. And if you feel the way I do, meet me after school and I'll walk you to your bus. And that'll be the sign. If you don't feel it, we don't have to say another word." And I walked away. Later that day, I'm in my last class. I'm packing up to go. And I see Christina in the doorway, smiling, waving to me, holding the letter. This is it. She's made her decision. I truthfully, in that moment, felt so happy. And I got up with the idea of holding her hand and walking her to her bus. And as I walked towards her, Mike comes into the frame of the door and they both start laughing at me. The joke was on me. They had planned this whole thing after she read the note and they wanted to make me look like an idiot. They pointed at me, held the letter, laughed, and walked away. When you experience that kind of thing anytime in your life, you don't ever forget it. And I haven't forgotten it. And I could have given up on love. That was the lowest point for me. I thought, this thing isn't for me. I'm going to be single my whole life. I'll never find my true love. And then I listened to a song from my favorite band, Pearl Jam. Better Man. She lies and says she's in love with him. Can't find a better man. She dreams in color. She dreams in red. Can't find a better man. I thought, I'm the better man. I'm the better man. She's looking for him out there. I'm looking for her. I can't give up on love. I kept looking. Look, some people find it early and keep it forever. Some people find it early and lose it. Some people find it late and some people never find it at all. But I kept looking. And luckily, I found her. The woman who's about to voice our outro accepted the other half of my heart necklace.
Seven-Minute Stories is created and performed by Aaron Calafato. Our senior audio engineer is Ken Went. Our resident artist is Pete Whitehead. Original music by TJ Duke. If you or your company needs help starting a podcast, Aaron and Ken's company, Valley View, does just that. Reach out to them at valleyview.fm. Special thanks to our partners at Evergreen Podcasts, and I'm Corey Burse. Make sure to tune in next week for another story.
Hey, everybody, it's Aaron, and you're listening to 7-Minute Stories Radio, streamed worldwide at 7minutestoriespod.com/radio. The 7-Minute Stories podcast is the #1 short-form extemporaneous podcast in the world, and you can listen to it in podcast form on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you're doing well. Little announcement for you before we get started with this week's episode. Look, nobody should have to brave the professional world alone, especially in this post-COVID, remote, hybrid, weird world we all find ourselves in. And that's why with the company Glassdoor, I helped create and now co-host a podcast called The Lonely Office. If you've ever wondered, how much of my real self should I bring to work? Or what's the deal with Zoom meetings? Or is it okay to turn down a promotion? Or what do you do when you're fired? You may be interested in this podcast. These are all questions that I've asked in my career. And after our official launch last week, the podcast jumped into the top 10 career podcasts in the United States. So pretty proud of that. And as 7-Minute Story listeners, I think you might dig it because every episode starts with a story told by yours truly. And we source all of these stories from anonymous work accounts from professionals all over the country that they leave on the Glassdoor app. So true stories from the professional world, people trying to navigate that blurry line between life and work. So if it's something you're interested in, I wanted to tell you all about it. If not, let's keep doing 7-Minute Stories every week and we'll just hang here. All right, this week's episode, I was thinking about my grandmother and just getting a little nostalgic and thinking about different episodes that I have told about her house. This is my grandma on my mom's side, and she literally lived in this tiny little cottage over the river and through the woods. And I went back in the archives and I found a story titled Over the River. And I can't believe it. It was from 2018. It's like, it didn't seem like that long ago, but it's been a little bit. So especially for you new listeners, so you don't have to scroll 57 times to get to episode 15 of season 1. I wanted to re-air this for you, and as I just listened to it when putting a final mix together, it still rings true, and maybe it'll connect you with a little journey back over the river and through the woods, wherever your grandparents live. All right, enjoy, everybody.
You're listening to 7-Minute Stories with Aaron Calafato. This episode, Over the River.
I don't know if I like the way that I look at the world now better than the way I looked at it as a kid, the way that I perceived it. It's like a playground. When I was a kid, I could play on any playground. Didn't matter where it was, didn't matter what it looked like, if it had a swing or if it had a slide. I could glean something from that. I could create an experience out of nothing. And I would just play. But now, as an adult, I could look at that same playground and I could say, that's just a rusted out piece of shit playground behind a drugstore in a city that's lost half its population and its industry in the last 7 years. What a shithole. Wouldn't want to go there. And maybe that would be true. Because I know better now, right? Reminds me when I would go to my grandmother's house in the summer, and I've talked about her in some of these stories. And she literally lived over the river and through the woods. And she lived in a very quaint cottage, very clean inside, very warm and safe. And she lived the latter half of her years out in this rural space. And she lived on a gravel road. And if you kept going down this gravel road, there was probably 10 to 15 other houses, but they weren't really houses. Some of them were on slabs. Some of them were shacks and shanties. And even though she and I would spend a lot of time inside watching soap operas and Peter Jennings late at night, and then playing this weird board game named Racco, when the weather was nice, I'd be outside riding my bike up and down this road. And she always told me, don't go past the gray house. Don't go further down the road. As soon as you hit the gray house, stop, because there's danger on the other side of the road. And I remember being so fucking curious. I would just ride as fast as I could from her house all the way to the gray house, and then pump my brakes on and stop and let the smoke from the gravel road just kind of dramatically flow up. And I would just look down this road and wonder what was down there. What was the danger at the end of this road? But I never went past it. I never went past that gray house. I stopped and I would turn around and ride back. I didn't want to cross my grandmother. And when I would ride back, I looked at some of the other houses and I would see people sitting on their porch and I would wave. Then there were some other houses that looked abandoned. There was another house that would have a Ford F-150 just sitting in the front yard, weeds growing through the engine block, and some farm equipment that used to be used for agricultural purposes, and now it's being used by rodents and crows for a house. And then there was this one house. There was this guy who's probably middle-aged, long, stringy hair. He would walk in his front yard aimlessly, always smoking a cigarette. I was afraid to look him in the eye. He had sunken-in cheekbones, and his eyes always scared me. And every once in a while, I'd look at him, and I would see that he would wear a t-shirt, same t-shirt every time I saw him. And it kind of looked like an American flag, but it was different, kind of a different looking American flag. And eventually I would return to my grandma's. 20 years later, I started asking some questions, and I found out at the end of the road past the gray house, there was a registered sex offender that lived there. That's perspective. Something you would only know as an adult. My grandmother was just trying to protect me. 2 houses over from her, this kid, Timmy, he was my friend. He lived there, and we would always play outside, never really inside, always outside, and always in the yard, pretending to be knights or soldiers, and we would emulate our favorite action stars like Steven Seagal or Jean-Claude Van Damme, and we would do karate moves on each other until we actually hit each other, and then we would cry, and then we would laugh, and then we'd do it all again. He was a really sweet kid. He was good to me, and I remember he had sandy blonde hair. He had these dimples and his great laugh, and his shirts never went over his belly. Either they were too small or he was just chunky, but they would never go over his belly. And we were just kids. It was summertime. One day he invited me over his house, and I had never been inside. So I asked my grandmother, and she was hesitant, but she said, "Go ahead." And walked over to the house. And when we walked inside, I could tell it was just different right away. The smell hit me, and it just smelled off. It smelled bad, but I didn't want to say anything to my friend. And we walked in, and there was cats everywhere, and there was like shit on the ground from the cats, clothes piled up. Walked into the kitchen, there's dishes piled in the sink. And in the TV room, his mom was laying in a recliner watching Sally Jesse Raphael, I remember, and flipping between that and Maury Povich with the bunny ears on the TV. And she was laying down eating, and she had to have been at least 300 pounds. It reminded me of a movie I just saw called What's Eating Gilbert Grape. But his mom was nice enough, and she would say, "You kids have fun." And we did. We'd go into his room and we'd play video games. Even though now I have context and awareness as an adult, even though now I can tell you about playgrounds and neighborhoods and culture, much more smarter than my kid self. The one thing I did as a kid, and that I hope carries through as I continue to get older, and I hope I don't lose, is that I always put personhood above circumstance. And maybe that was just because I was a stupid kid. But I don't think it takes a genius to know that that is noble. And that's worth aspiring to.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. A lot of people have been coming up to Aaron and I at parties, sending emails, and calling to tell us how much they love the podcast and ask when the next episode's coming out. A great way to stay connected is to visit the website, 7minutestoriespod.com. You can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts. And while you're there, let more people know what you think about Aaron and his storytelling by rating and leaving a review. Lastly, the biggest compliment you can give us is to share your favorite episode with friends on social media. Thanks again for listening.